All right, so it seems to be the case that it is essentially debating season when it comes to politics, and that is because Politicon is coming up October 20th and the 21st. It's on a weekend, and all three, Kyle Kalinske, David Pakman, and Sam Seder, are all going to be attending. So that should, result in some really interesting debates. Now, Politicon, I've already gone into depth as to why they need to get their stuff together because their stuff is clearly not together. They have a lot of work to do in terms of organizing their stuff and being better than what they are. They need to be more proper in organizing who's going to be debating. They need to be more professional about it, and they need to have it so that people aren't canceling on them left and right because that's unacceptable. As a professional convention, you can't have a situation like that. So we had David Pakman not know who he's going to debate, and we just got the information that Ann Coulter, who was announced to be debating Kyle Kalinske from Secular Talk, is not no longer going to be debating him. She has pulled out. She has pulled out of the debate. She has absolutely chickened out. What she has done is extremely unethical because you don't pull out of a debate less than 2 weeks away from that said debate. Okay, there's no way. I think someone can check me on this, but I'm pretty sure there's been more time passed that it has been confirmed that they're going to be debating each other than there has of time left until Politicon, which is embarrassing. And a lot of the blame goes on Politicon. Don't mix that up. It's really really important that you know that as well. That it is a huge huge amount of blame going on Politicon for that because they failed to be a legitimate professional convention and actually set everything up right. But anyway, so here's something super interesting, right? So Sam Seder, he was at this mass torts convention. I think it's something where like lawyers go and talk and things like that. It's kind of interesting. That's where David Pakman and Sam Seder and the whole Majority Report crew, they started talking about Jimmy Dore there because they had David Pakman on there. Here's something interesting that Sam Seder is going to talk about. He's going to mention the infamous Steven Crowder. Now, Steven Crowder, his show is literally called Louder with Crowder. He is a very loud mouth, of course. He is, constantly proclaiming that the left does not debate. He has his Change My Mind segment in which he got absolutely mauled by Yusuf and basically kicked him off his show immediately because he was losing the debate so badly he had to absolutely run away immediately. Now, here's something super interesting. Sam Seder is going to talk about the Steven Crowder, the prospect of debating Steven Crowder. Now, he doesn't mention the word debate, but it's very obvious what he's hinting at, okay? It's extremely obvious. Now, I want you guys to check this out, and then we'll come back and talk about this.
Memos where these bra executives said they knew, but they didn't care.
Steven Crowder, clarifying Anita, Steven Crowder avoids death by chocolate cake recipe because it has death in it, like he thinks the National Socialist German Workers' Party is left-wing because it has the word socialist in it, I see. Steven Crowder.
That was a good joke.
We're going to talk more about Steven Crowder in the coming days. I'm not going to do it now. But Steven Crowder, I can say, my sense is he's the type of guy who talks a big game, but when it comes to putting his money where his mouth is, or frankly, even putting his mouth where his mouth is, he's a little bit, let's just say, timid. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say anything else right now.
Hope we're not being
I'm
unfair.
not going to say what I'm referring to.
Hope we're not being unfair.
I would normally hope I'm not being unfair, but in this instance, I know for a fact I'm being more than fair. I'm being more than fair. And so Steven Crowder, he talks a very big game, but he plays a very small game. Very small game.
Check it on Alexa.
We will talk more about that.
Wow, so that is something that is massively interesting because essentially what Sam is saying is, I mean, he explained it pretty well. Steven Crowder plays a big game. He doesn't play a big game. He talks a big game. let's have these debates, let's do these debates. Well, he doesn't actually show up. That's something really interesting. So the question becomes, he's going to talk more about that later, so I'm excited for that information to come out. I'm assuming that's going to come out post Politicon, although there's no way to really be sure, but I mean, that's the safe assumption to make based on essentially being in any position. That's a safe assumption to make, right? But so essentially, he is explaining that Steven Crowder, despite having a very loud mouth and saying, lefties won't debate me and different things like that, he refused to have a debate with Sam Seder. Now, the question that's coming up for me is, did it have to do with at the convention, at the Mass Torts conference? Was Steven Crowder there? Or is he talking about something else in which he's talking about Politicon? I mean, that's the other thing, right? So my understanding of the situation is Steven Crowder isn't going to Politicon, to my knowledge at least. If he is, and I don't know, someone can correct me, but that's to my understanding of the situation is that he is not going to Politicon. So the situation could be, it very well could be, that basically what's going on is Sam Seder was in talks with Politicon, and maybe the name was floated Steven Crowder. I don't know whether the name would have been floated by Sam or who it would have been floated by. If it would have been floated by the Politicon people, I'm not really sure. But, I mean, it very well could have been Steven Crowder, and then he ended up backing out. Again, this is something that obviously just comes down at the end of the day to speculation. That's what it ends up coming down to. So you guys can let me know what you guys think, whether or not it was Politicon or, because we know it's a debate, right? What else could they possibly be talking about? There's nothing else. It's obviously a debate, right? This obviously has to do with Steven Crowder turning down a debate with Sam Seder. 100%. There's no question about that, right? The question is, was he talking about in the context of Politicon, or was he talking about the context of the conference? Honestly, I don't know, but I do find this to be extremely intriguing because there is a trend going on right now of right-wingers apparently backing out and, as David Pakman put it, chickening out of debates at Politicon specifically. So David Pakman spoke about this. He's actually the first one to bring attention to this technically, even though the Sam Seder clip that you just saw was before David Pakman made his video. But we know Ann Coulter backed out. Now, let's see what David says. The way he puts it is that there are a bunch of conservatives who talk all about debates and having open conversations, but at the end of the day, they ended up chickening out.
And I will be hopefully meeting in LA Friday, Saturday to strategize about this. They could back out, the people on the right. Lots of people, lots of right-wingers have backed out. I'm not cleared to talk about some of the right-wingers that have backed out, but many of my friends thought that they were doing certain things at Politicon, and they aren't. So it's next week. It should really get figured out definitively. It should be figured out definitively pretty soon. Anyone
they do, especially because we're only 9 days away from the
I
event.
know.
But seeing how so many other of these panels and these debates have just been getting canceled,
Yeah.
they're never booked in the first place.
Yep.
Who knows what will happen?
Yeah, they. I don't want to say more, but let me just put it this way: I hope someday we all come clean. I think people are maybe waiting for after Politicon with the right wingers who effectively chickened out of certain debates. I think people in the audience would be stunned to hear who some of those individuals who claim to be all about debating and then letting the best ideas rise to the top like cream on top of milk. We're going to hopefully someday tell those stories. And by the way,
That's a pretty crazy statement, man. It does seem to be the case that there are a bunch of conservatives who have been pulling out of these debates, specifically at Politicon. Now, I did a video specifically speaking about what David just stated, but the thing is that there's no way to know who he's speaking about until he says that hopefully that they can talk about it post-Politicon. So I am very, very hopeful that after Politicon is done, we'll get the full information, the entire, all of the information There's supposedly supposed to be a David Pakman, Kyle versus Candace and Charlie debate, which would be amazing, but we don't know if that's going to happen because we thought for a while now that Kyle Kalinske, I was about to say secular talk, Kyle Kalinske is going to be debating Ann Coulter. We thought that for quite a while now, like almost a month, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously that didn't end up panning out. So we can't even know for sure if the Charlie Kirk thing is going to happen. But who ended up chickening out of those debates at Politicon that Dave Pakman's speaking about? Who knows, man? Honestly, I don't know. I honestly have no idea. But let me know your thoughts about this down below. It is something that is absolutely interesting, extremely, extremely, extremely interesting.